so hot out here. It's damn hot. Oh my God.
And we're like, the world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change.
It's oppressively hot. It's your fault. It's your. You're the reason people are dying of heat exhaustion. You're the reason. You don't care about people. Oh God. The politicians have to save us. Save us, Washington D.C.
Hey guys, before I get into today's video, here's a shout out for this video's sponsor. When the shit hits the fan and the power goes out, one of the things you're going to need is an ultra bright flashlight and a power bank to charge your devices. This is the indoor-outdoor Lightbug work light. It's got a solar panel to turn sunlight into storable, usable energy, or you can charge it with a regular wall outlet. The adjustable bracket allows you to hang it, hold it in your hand, or get the perfect light angle on a table. It comes in handy for car repair, fishing, hunting, and camping. And check this out. I fully charged this thing, turned it on, and left it on the counter, and it shined for over 5 hours. Grab a couple of them for family and friends. Your link is in the description. Look at this. Climate change has gotten deadly. It will get worse. And you can take that to the bank from the Washington compost pile. Democracy dies in darkness. Says researchers say they are virtually certain. How's that? Isn't that like an oxymoron? Virtually certain? That's like airline food, military intelligence, tight slacks, jumbo shrimp. Virtually certain? Either you're certain or you're not. You can't be virtually certain. You can't use virtually with certain. This is, researchers say they're virtually certain that warming from human greenhouse gas emissions played a pivotal role in recent fatalities. So you know what they're setting you up for. If you're not on board with spending trillions and trillions of dollars and putting trillions and trillions of dollars into the pockets of politicians so that they can save us from climate change, then you don't care about humanity. Just like if you didn't put on ritualistic shame muzzle, if you didn't follow those signs on the floor that said to social distance, if you didn't bow down at the altar, Jabbo, you don't care about humanity. You're a public health risk. Well, now you're a climate health risk. The emergency department at Oregon Health and Science University had rarely been this busy, even during the worst stages of the COVID's 1984 by George Orwell planned organized partial shutdown of the U.S. economy in the second quarter. How about that? Here, let me blow this up here so you can see it a little bit. Physicians raced to provide fluids to patients who arrived breathless, dizzy, and drenched in sweat. Others were brought in on stretchers, their body temperatures so high their central nervous systems had shut down. And those who could still speak told of stifling apartments and the sun that made their skin sizzle. Yeah, I believe that. Wait a second. Told of stifling apartments and sun that made their skin sizzle? I just don't believe that, Washington compost pile. Looks like something other than democracy dies in darkness. Some had tried to walk to county cooling shelters only to collapse in the blistering heat. Let me see. I'm gonna click on this. Open a new tab there. The system was overwhelmed, said Mary Tansky, chair of OHSU's Department of Emergency Medicine, of the towering heat dome that topped temperature records across the Northwest this week. So they're going to blame this on, quote, climate change. And guys, ever since you've been born, ever since I've been born, the climate has changed. That's what the climate does. That's what our Earth does. That's what the weather does. It changes. If you don't like the weather in Oklahoma, they say stick around for 15 minutes. It'll change. Weather always changes. The question is, what part does man play in the changing of the climate, in the changing of the weather? And we know that there are certain human beings, those who belong to government, that actually admit to weather modification techniques, employing weather modification techniques so that they can bring drought here, they can bring rains over here so that they can shower the crops. Flooding, they're responsible for flooding. According to them, they're responsible for the flooding. Remember back in the 1960s, that popular science thing? What was it, Operation Popeye, where they extended the monsoon season? so that they could give the American troops the edge, they said. They called it weather warfare. Do you think that they're not still doing that? I did a whole episode on this last week during my live stream. It's pretty interesting when you look into it. If you just take the government's documents, if you just take what they say and what they admit they can do with the weather, they can modify the weather, they can change the climate, they can extend monsoon seasons, they can do things with tornadoes and cyclones and hurricanes. They can withhold weather and they can bring the weather. How do we know that the burning in California isn't happening right now because of these weather modification experts? We don't. But then we're supposed to step in and we're supposed to be taxed a little bit more and give the politicians more money so that they can change the weather when it's their cronies, their corporatist cronies, who are actually responsible, the military industrial complex overlords who are responsible for bringing this stuff. And they're saying we need to reduce our carbon footprint when they're like the Godzilla of carbon footprint. We're less than plankton in the ocean. They're the blue whales and we're the plankton, and they want us to modify our behavior while the blue whales jet set across the earth? I don't think so. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. The system was overwhelmed. Some patients didn't survive in Oregon, Washington, and Western Canada, and it was hot there. What was it? They recorded 116 or 118 in somewhere in Canada. The record, just historic records. How do we know that those weather modification experts didn't have some part in that? If we just take them according to their words, they did. They did have some part in that. And if they didn't, they had some part in stopping it and they chose not to. They could have modified that weather in Canada and kept 118 degree weather from coming on Canadians. Somebody just said in the room that it was 112 where you are today. Weather modifications experts claim to have the technology to be able to stop that kind of thing from happening, and they don't. So whether they brought it or whether they didn't do anything to step in and stop it, the bottom line is they're responsible because they say they are. If they can modify the weather and don't, and it kills a whole bunch of people, then who's responsible for that? What, you could have stopped it and you didn't do it? Or you've taken the credit for being able to do something none of the rest of us can? That's control weather patterns, control the jet stream. And we're the conspiracy theorists? I mean, seriously, they will call you you're a tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist, Brian, and all you did was read the documents that come from, what is that? Controlling the weather by 2025. Weather is a force multiplier. Controlling the weather by 2025 from the United States Air Force document. It will be months before experts know precisely how many of those deaths can be specifically attributed to climate change. Just broad brush, climate change. You had everything to do with it. It's because of your lifestyle. It's because you're using straws that are surrounded by plastic. It's because you got a gas guzzling car. It's because you don't ride a bicycle. It's because you're not making the sacrifices you need to make to pare down to keep from using that air conditioning in the summertime or that heat in the wintertime. You're the problem. Oh, really? But researchers who specialize in the science of attribution say they are virtually certain that warming from human greenhouse gas emissions played a pivotal role. Because I'm virtually certain that greenhouse gases, because of human emissions, played a key role in all this, we reserve the right to tax you more because we gotta save the planet. It's a sign of how dangerous the climate crisis has gotten and how much worse it can still become. The heat dome. First I've heard of this heat dome. We have a heat dome, guys. There's a heat dome. Flat earthers go, yeah, see, we told you. See, we're living under a dome. See, thanks. The heat dome was just one of a barrage of climate catastrophes that struck the world in recent weeks. Western wildfires are off to a scorching start, pun intended, with firefighters actively battling 44 large blazes that have burned nearly 700,000 acres. Parts of Florida and the Caribbean are bracing for landfall of Hurricane Elsa, the Atlantic's fifth named storm in what is one of the most active starts to hurricane season on record. Oh, I wonder why that is. Oh, it's because you are using too much electricity, too much gasoline, too many fossil fuels, they call them. Nearly 500,000 people in Madagascar are at risk of starvation as the country grapples with dust storms, locusts, and its worst drought in decades. Well, maybe if NASA didn't spend $60.1 million every single day, we could probably help feed some people. Maybe if the Pentagon wasn't losing 2.3 trillion and 1.8 trillion, and Biden wasn't giving away 1.9 trillion, and Donald Trump didn't give away 6.2 trillion. Maybe we could be that beacon on a hill to help people out. But we're too busy feeding the defense contractors and the military industrial complex. Yeah, I think that's where all our money's going. They don't care about feeding people. They care about feeding themselves and eliminating people because, hey, basically, to them, we're useless eaters. To all these billionaires like the Jeff Bezos of the world, the Gil Bates of the world, the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, we're just useless eaters. We're eating their food, taking up their space, and breathing their air. That's how they look at us. And you wonder why there's Commandment 1 on the Georgia Guidestones, to limit Earth's population to 500 million in perfect balance and harmony with nature. Oh, it sounds good. Unless you're not one of the 500 million who've been selected to stay on this earth. Nearly 500,000 people in Madagascar are at risk of starvation as the country grapples with dust storms, locusts, and the worst drought in decades. Climate change has loaded the weather dice against us, says this person, a climate scientist at Texas Tech. I wonder what kind of kickbacks they're getting from the Gil Bates of the world as they seek to block out the sun. Blocking out. You want climate change, blocking out the sun would probably do it. Blocking out the sun. There might be a whole bunch of plants that don't get to grow because they don't see the light of the sun because there's this white haze all over the sky that used to be blue. Remember when you went out and played pass the football, you had vertibird or those lawn darts, those dangerous lawn darts. How did we ever make it out of childhood alive? Remember when you throw that lawn dart up in the air and going, man, I hope that thing doesn't poke me in the eye. Remember looking up at the blue, just crystal blue sky, man. Beautiful blue. Now it's all milky and hazy almost every day. And when you do see a blue sky, it's like, oh man, that is so refreshing to see something like that. Although it's probably not like it was back in the 1970s and 80s. These extremes are something we knew were coming. Kind of like that ice age they thought was coming in the 1970s. Oh my God, in the next 10 years, it's all over. It's going to be frozen over unless we do something about it. The polar ice caps are expanding. They're going to take over the entire Earth. We're going to enter a new ice age. And then they changed it to global warming. It went from the new ice age to global warming to climate change. Climate change. Climate change. That'll cover it. Climate change. Hey, it's getting colder. See, I told you climate change. Hey, it's getting warmer. It's warmer than it usually is. Climate change. Hey, it's rainier than usual. There's a lot of flooding. Climate change. Why box ourselves in with the global warming next ice age thing? Let's just say climate change. Look, climate change. We got our bases covered. Humans burning fossil fuels have caused the globe. Don't get triggered, guys. That wasn't my word, okay? That wasn't my word. That's their word. The globe to warm roughly 1 degree Celsius or 2 degrees Fahrenheit since the pre-industrial era. It's a seemingly incremental change, but it has led to disproportionately frequent and severe natural disasters. And if people end up dying, doggone it, it's your fault. You just had to have that plastic bag when you went to the grocery store, didn't you? You just had to take that extra trip in that, which you thought was a fuel-efficient vehicle, didn't you? It's your fault. Doggone you. While we have time and it still retains some of its perceived value, maybe it'd be a good idea to convert your worthless fiat into valuable, storable food. Don't be the one who waits till the food riots start happening. You don't want to be fighting panicking people in the store over that last jar of peanut butter. At Prepare with High Impact Flicks, you can get up to 3 air and watertight gasket sealed ammo cans, each filled with a 4-week emergency supply. 7 food varieties, 2,000 calories a day, 284 servings, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and each meal comes in a resealable, heavy-duty 4-layered pouch. And it's got a 25-year shelf life. Every order of a 4-week supply gets you $100 off plus free shipping. Here's how simple it is to make. I'm going to cook up some Granny's home-style potato soup. People are going to think I'm a culinary hero. You open the pouch, boil 4.5 cups of water, stir the contents, simmer on low heat for 15 to 20 minutes, take it off the heat, then let it set for 2 to 3 minutes before you serve it up.
Man, this stuff's so good. People are going to think Granny stopped by and filled your kitchen with a whole bunch of love.
Well, if Granny does stop by, she's going to fill your behind with a whole bunch of buckshot if you keep talking with your mouth full. Wipe your dang beard off. It's embarrassing. So maybe convert some of your worthless fiat into valuable food while you still can. Order now and get $100 off of up to 3 4-week emergency food supplies at preparewithhighimpactflix.com. The link is in the description.